Hello, and thanks for making it to Veterans Info Tap. I'm glad you made it today. Wanted to talk about some potential tax changes for us through HR 25. That's House of Representatives legislation that they introduced, HR 25, which is the Fair Tax Act of 2023. So Fair Tax Act of 2023. This is an act that has kind of been rolling around for a couple decades. Essentially, this act has been now reintroduced by Representative Carter from Georgia. And I wanted to kind of dive into it a little bit and see what sort of impacts. Will this actually affect veterans and our VA disability compensation? Is that posed to take some sort of a hit? At least from what I've read so far. And again, please hit the like for me, subscribe, share with a friend, all that good stuff. As we continue to roll on. I really appreciate the support. It helps to get the word out to more of us with regard to veteran benefits and so forth. So what we're looking at with this Fair Tax Act of 2023, again, it's been around for a couple decades, kicking around. The gist of it all is abolishing the IRS, ending funding for the IRS, and coming up with a different tax structure, which that part's fine, not any big issue there. Essentially, it's shifting from the IRS and the federal tax rates to a consumption tax. So in other words, kind of like a sales tax. So the things that you're buying, a tax on that. Now, again, okay, I get it. Let's kind of dive into that a little bit and kind of see what sort of ramifications might come from that. One of the things that I read on Representative Carter's website was that essentially what will happen will be is the federal government will punt this responsibility to the states. The states will then be responsible for administering, collecting, remitting that tax collected to the Treasury. So the states will be responsible for collecting this consumption tax, and then they'll put it all in a bucket and then they'll send it to the Fed. So what I'm envisioning is that there will be no federal income tax coming out of your paycheck. So that goes away. So your paycheck's higher, but then you go on and spend money and you're taxed more, and then that's where they get it. So depending on what you buy, I guess, will kind of determine how much that's going to affect you. One of the things that they also have in this Tax Act, the Fair Tax Act, is that it would end funding for the IRS in 2027. So basically it would be kind of a drawdown period, and then they would completely just, the funding would stop. So what is the tax rate that they're looking at for the sales tax, consumption tax is 23%. Well, okay, 23% on what? Mostly the way that I can kind of figure it right now is anything that you're receiving some sort of a sales tax on today is where that would apply. So, whatever you're buying today, if there's a sales tax associated, envision a 23% bump on that. Now, here's the piece you have to think about. If you make, just to use easy numbers, if you make taxable income of, we'll just use easy numbers, $5,000 a month. If you make a taxable income of $5,000 a month, you're not spending all $5,000 on taxable things, right? So every month that you make a mortgage payment, if you have a mortgage, or a rental payment, every month, there's not a sales tax associated with that. And that's the biggest piece that most of us are going to spend our money on, is either rent or mortgage. That's the biggest. The next biggest will be your car, right? So your automobiles. You're not paying a monthly tax on that, but you did pay a sales tax up front. Now, depending on how you bought your car, you bought it from a dealership, you're getting taxed on that whole amount. If you bought it from a private person at a lower price, right, then you're going to pay tax on that. So you have to look at some of that stuff with this. So again, that would be a one-time tax, then you're done. And then you're making your monthly payments on it. So if you're going out and buying a new TV, you're buying a new computer, you're buying a new cell phone, what have you, you're going to get taxed on that. So it's just important to understand that your taxable income currently is your whole income earned versus what you're going out and spending money on getting taxed. Now, in my opinion, you have to look at this. It's almost an individual thing, right? So if you're earning money, that's one bucket. Let's say you're not earning any money. Let's say that you are on fixed incomes. You're on retirement. You're on, let's say that you're 100% TDIU and that's your only income, or it's the big bulk of your income. Well, your taxes are zero, right? Let's say that you have less than $10,000 of taxable income. Your total taxable income, if you have, again, I mean, you can slice this 1,000 different ways. So let's just say that you're a 100% rated veteran, or you have a high rating, and that's a big bulk of your income. And then you also have some small amount of taxable income that equates to $10,000 or less. You're paying 10% tax on that $10,000. Okay, so that's your taxable income. Now, if you're spending money buying things, all of a sudden what you're spending on is now jumped up 23%. You might be in a worse off position. Now, if you are making, say, $42,000 up to $42,000, somewhere between $10,000 and $42,000, your tax base on the entire amount. Okay, so let's say you make $42,000 of taxable income, you are at 12% on $42,000. But let's say that you don't go spend $42,000 on taxable things. Let's say you spend half of that. So, and that's still kind of a lot. That's, $21,000. So now you've spent $21,000, but if you have no federal income tax anymore, that 12% rate goes away. Now that's been embedded with this 23% tax through the Fair Tax Act called the consumption tax. Now you're basically spending 23%. If you spend $21,000, you're spending 23% on that $21,000, which is the same basically as being taxed at $42,000 at 12%. Okay, so $42,000 at 12% or $21,000 at 23% equates to really close to the same number. Okay, because 12% doubled up is 24. So 24 versus 23, close enough. So just to put it in perspective, right? If you made $42,000, you would have to spend $21,000 on taxable items that would be taxed at that 23% rate. Then, if you make over that $42,000 up to $89,000, you're actually taxed 22%. So what I see in all of this is really the folks that are just receiving VA compensation. That's all you have, not taxable, right? All of a sudden your sales tax is jumping up, so it's in effect costing you more. So let's say that you're receiving $4,000. Let's say you're at 100% and you got a kid or something. $4,000 a month. $4,000 a month of tax-free compensation. And let's say that you spend $1,500 of that on taxable items, right? And now all of a sudden there's a new 23%. Well, that $1,500 has now turned into like $2,000. So you effectively just lost $500 a month, if that's what you're doing, right? So just to give an example. Now, once you get into the taxable income bracket of around $40,000 or so, and if you spend $20,000, which is like $2,000 a month on taxable items, right? Which is a lot, maybe. Then you're kind of breaking even. So will it affect some people if this thing passes? Yes. Will it affect the most vulnerable of us, veterans? Yes. I believe so. So, with that, I'll go ahead and conclude it here. I'd love to hear some comments on anybody who's done some deep dives into this HR 25 Fair Tax Act of 2023. Any thoughts? This is just kind of my high-level overview of what I see on it. So please comment below, share your information, and remember, if we don't take care of each other, something went wrong.